How's it going, guys? Gosh, Gerson is the first one here. Holy crap, I literally just went live. Tonight's Monday night, and it's kind of like the beginning of the week, and I gotta admit, I got a case of the Mondays, but I'm gonna try to battle through it. I just been doing a bunch of fish maintenance, hanging out. We had tacos as a family tonight. I had a bunch of my brother-in-laws over. The big old family was over. Everyone brings their dogs. It's just utter chaos. I'm excited everyone's gone, if I'm being completely honest. So tonight's live stream, though, the topic is going to be about aquarium sizes. Like, what I always get asked this, and everyone asks me, it's mainly new fish keepers, and they're like, hey Chris, what's the best aquarium size for me to get? And to be completely honest, everybody for the most part wants to get, I feel like, a really small tank. That's like, maybe you can agree if like, God, these fish are going insane. People always want this small tank, and when people reach out to me, they're like, hey Chris, I found this tank for sale at a garage sale, or it's at the thrift store. It's huge, this tank's huge. And I drive there, I spend 20 minutes of my day and I drive there, and it's a 55-gallon tank, or like a 29 gallon, and I'm like, dude, this isn't big. Like, what are you thinking? This isn't big at all, you know? But I think that goes hand in hand with people thinking tanks are like what? This is kind of a side rant, but why do people think like tanks are big when they're not tank? Is that kind of just a misunderstanding once you're not an aquarium geek, essentially? Anyways, I guess when people ask me the recommendations on what tank size they should go for, I always tell them a couple of variables. Number one, I always tell people is, do you live in an apartment or a house? Because some people might say, well, it doesn't matter, right? Well, it actually does matter, because when you're living in a house, there's more things you can work with, essentially, and you're kind of handicapped with a lot of setbacks in apartment lifestyle when it comes to fish aquariums, especially big fish aquariums. All right, let's hit up the chat here. I want to give some shout outs. Oh, there's a bunch of you guys already here. Gerson is here. Hello. Lisa's Fishbowl. Mr. B's Fish and Things. Hello. Happy Toast says, what's up? Jordan Reynolds. PT Bass Fisher. He says, I think a 20-gallon tank is a great starting tank. And Naturally Lochi says, I'm moving my tank. A 20-gallon tank, I feel like, is too small, especially for beginners. Like, I always tell people, if you're not willing to go big, it's going to be a lot harder and a lot more work. And I'm kind of a biased opinion because I'm not a nano tank kind of guy. I can love nano tanks, don't get me wrong, but it's like people, I truly believe like most of this industry fails at keeping fish. Like, there's statistics, I'm not quoting them, but it's like something like 90% of people give up this hobby within a year. So they go out and buy a fish tank, and within a year they just completely leave, and I'm guessing it's because their fish die because they don't get a big enough tank. And I think that is the number one variable that comes into play with people dropping out of this niche industry, hobby, whatever you want to call it. TY Buddy says, the biggest tank I can afford. How many Coriodoris or how many Panda Cories for a 55? You could put a bunch in there. You could do 10 of them easy. Happy Toast says, a 55 or a 75 is the best. You get so many different options for fish. Yes, I gotta agree with you, Happy Toast. What I tell people is the cheapest tank on the planet is literally a 55-gallon tank, and it's a decent size to start with. But yet a lot of people think that they're huge. Like, this is like the size of a bathtub, right? You could lay in there, you could get a pet dolphin, right? You got a 55-gallon tank. The reality is that's not the case. Like, once you get into this industry and you understand a 55-gallon tank is not that great of a tank, and it's pretty small yet, it's don't get me wrong, 55 is a great tank, especially like I thought about stacking 55-gallon tanks in my shop. God, the light goes off. That's my biggest pet peeve. My night isn't going well now. No, I'm just kidding. But I thought about stacking 55s because I can get them so cheap to where, like, literally you could stock a bunch of 55s for really cheap. And what was I talking about? The 55-gallon. It's so cheap that it almost, I feel like, is the best beginner tank. I used to sell 55-gallon tanks for 30 bucks, because I would want to get people over here to look at my fish when I had my bigger fish room set up. I would say, oh, you're coming over, you want to buy a tank? How about you maybe pick up some fish while you're here, you know what I mean? All right, I'm gonna hit the chat here for a second. Jeff Rose is in the house. He says hello. He says, am I a mod? Yes, Jeff Rose, you are a mod. I'm a huge fan of your channel. I had to add you as a mod. So Matthew Moore Cichlids is in the house. How's it going, everyone? Yeah, we're kind of just talking about what is the best tank size for a person, you know, like, okay, let's, I got a little bit off topic. Let's say the first variable is if you live in a house or an apartment. This is a big deal because I feel like if you live in an apartment, you should probably have a smaller tank. And that's because water changes are going to be harder. You're going to have to figure out how to, like in a house, you could customize things, maybe like jump into a water line. You could maybe run a hose from like your service room or your hot water heater or outside, because maybe you have a hose hookup. There's a lot more parameters to work with when changing water, and changing water in a fish tank is literally your biggest setback when setting up a tank, I feel, because it's something you're gonna have to be doing probably once every 2 weeks or once every week, depending on your stocking and such. And it's, you know, an apartment, you might have to deal with a smaller water change setup. And a lot of people, like when I was in an apartment, I would use buckets because I didn't want to screw with the sink systems. I didn't want to, like, maybe you could use a pond pump, but you're literally like, you have to ghetto rig it to where, you know, maybe your pond pump runs into the bathtub. I used to do that, or run it into the toilet, but then you have your hose in the toilet. It's like, that's apartment lifestyle, kind of sucks. I would advise maybe going with a 30-gallon, a 20-gallon if you're living in an apartment. That's what I advise people, because it's just a different lifestyle. Michigan Aquatics is a 2,000-gallon in an apartment. Funny enough, I had when I rented my last apartment before I lived in this house, I got a 3-bedroom apartment for just me and my wife, so that my wife could have like her office. We shared offices, and then our bedroom, and then the third room was my fish room. I literally had like 6 tanks in there on the 3rd floor of an apartment, and I was literally doing water changes, popping the water outside of the balcony, having it run like on the tar essentially in the parking lot. I eventually got in trouble for it. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I later ran it into the bathtub. But still, I had to run all these hoses through the nice carpet, and it just it made a complete utter mess, and it was kind of hilarious. But I just kept at the grind because, and even when we rented houses, we went and rented houses after, and I had a fish room while I was renting a house because I had to set up so many tanks. I have to. There's no way around it. And a lot of people, Jeff Rose Fish Keeping, that stinks, 40-gallon breeder. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I gotta stay up on the chat. It's getting out of control, guys. Okay, so let me know in the chat what you think. Say a total beginner comes up to you, because it probably happens all the time, and they say, hey, what's a good sized fish tank, man? Like, what is your all around good? But remember, this is maybe one of my first fish tanks. So you have to, you know, in my personal opinion, smaller fish tanks are harder to keep. And it's, especially if you're wanting to stock it with fish, that's very common. Like, a lot of people want a fish tank. They go and get like a 10-gallon tank, and they go to Walmart or Petco, and they get a blood parrot, they get a rainbow shark, they get some tetras. Like, you got to remember, the common fish keeper wants to stuff it full of fish. They're not going and getting a 10-gallon tank and throwing a betta in there or some shrimp. It's not, Johnny Bravo says 75-gallon tank. Yes, 29 or 55 says Matthew Moore. Yeah, that, I totally agree. Those are, I would say, the bigger the better. I would say 75, 55, 40 breeder in a 29. I wouldn't advise anything below a 29, because I deal with this all the time. People come up to me at work. They're like, hey, man, I got this 29. I got platies breeding. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. You know, and I talk to them back and forth. And the same story ends in the same result. What happens is we'll chat about our tanks. I'll come up to them and chat about their tank for like 4 or 5 months. And then all of a sudden I'll ask them about their tank, and their face drops. You know, like, and I'm like, and I know the story because it happens over and over and over. Something goes wrong with their tank. Something goes wrong all their fish die, all of them get sick, something happens, and I truly believe the biggest setback is that size. And like, because the water parameters go south so fast that that red devil is becoming insane. I literally need to upgrade tanks ASAP. I sit here and preach and preach and preach. People need to upgrade tanks, and I got these massive predators. Like, that red devil is probably like 14 inches long. I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on just getting a massive tank to the left of me here, because it's literally, I'll show you guys here. It's 75s, and then I have more space here with the dehumidifier and a little table. And what I could do is just take out these 75s, that 360 acrylic, it's either 260 or 360 acrylic, is $500, and it's like 9 feet long. I could just stack that right here, temporary until I get things up in the shop, because I almost need an upgrade for these monsters that are just getting out of hand. And I'm starting to feel guilty because they're getting massive and they don't deserve to live in a little box like that. They need more room. It's just like, do I want to build a stand just to get this tank going? I'd have to move the 75s. Like, this is a true world struggle with upgrading big predator fish. And that is kind of a segue to the next topic of what size aquarium to keep. It's like, basically with a small tank, like, this isn't some crazy science. Like, if you're gonna keep a small tank, you gotta keep small fish, and vice versa. You want big fish that get big. Like, a lot of people, like the girl that was bringing me the Oscar, this is a side topic. A girl was bringing me an Oscar because she had a 40-gallon breeder and it was outgrowing the tank it was in. And she's like, well, how many fish do you have? And I'm like, I have a lot of fish. And I'm like, here's my YouTube channel, you know? And she's like, well, do you have a place for it? I was like, I'll find a home for the fish. And she's like, well, I'm not bringing it to you because you're just gonna bring it to some other home. I was like, no, I'm meaning I'll find a home for it in one of my tanks. Anyways, this girl gets all weird. She's like, I want someone to be able to properly take care of my Oscar fish. And I'm like, dude, I know, like, I'm like, forget it. I don't want the drama. Bring it to the fish store. I was like, to be completely honest, your fish has outgrown a 40-gallon breeder, like, right now. Like, I got into like this argument with this girl about her bringing an Oscar to my house. It's like, I own the Facebook group Oscar Fish Keepers that I see you're in. Like, that's my group. I have videos. Like, I can take care of your Oscar fish. If you wanted to bring them to me, someone told you to bring them to me. Anyways, the Oscar's not coming because she doesn't feel adequate, like I can take care of it. I'm like, lady, you're nuts. I'm sorry, you're nuts. I can't deal with this right now. Side topic. I don't even know what I was talking about anymore. The chat, guys. I gotta calm down here for a sec. Hey man, didn't you get my question? They did fine. Happy Toast says a 40 or 55 or maybe a 30. A 30, a 10, or a 2.5 all at once. Yeah, a lot of people are saying a 40-gallon breeder. I feel like 40-gallon breeder is like good size. Anthony Miller's just joined the chat. What's up? I got some cool videos coming down the pipeline real soon. We are going to be doing the Vampire Tetra. I finally got some footage of the gulper catfish. This is kind of like one of those really popular catfish that are like, it's a predator fish. You've probably seen the videos all over the internet going viral, but I finally have got some video footage, and I've been excited to do this video for a while, so that'll be cool. And some cool catfish videos that are coming. So it's not all gonna be live streams. I know lately it's gonna be a bunch of live streams. It's every night if he's streaming. Jeff Rowe. Yeah, I watch Jeff Rowe, all of his episodes, and I love it. I wish Jeff would do like topical live streams though. That would be really cool because I really like talking about certain topics and stuff, you know. Hey, Unconventional, love your vids. Hey, is Unconventional in the house? Ah, he is. He says, "What's up, brother? I finally made it to one of your streams." Yes, I love what you're doing over there, Unconventional. I'm not a pond guy, but some of these channels are like starting to get me to lean towards keeping like a pond. And I think a lot of people haven't done this idea. Maybe one of you guys could steal it from me because it's a brilliant idea. What you do is you get your pond essentially unconventional. This is you should run with this idea because it's really cool. My dad is a crazy fisherman. Like, it's probably where my obsession roots from. This is just the backstory of this idea. He's a crazy fisherman, and when he goes fishing, he uses these little underwater cameras while he fishes, because I go fishing with him once in a while. And I don't really like fishing because I don't like it that much, because just the things they do to the fish, I don't like it. But essentially with the pond idea, what you do is you get a small camera and you put it in the pond full time. You put it in the middle, because a lot of people do like underwater cams with like GoPros, and I've done that too for some footage and stuff. This is a full-time underwater camera, and it's like this big. And essentially, you can connect it to a television. So what you do is you go and get a 60-inch TV, maybe 50, whatever you can get your hands on, used, cheap, and you mount it right on the wall so that full-time you can see inside the tank. And that kind of gives you the viewing pane of a piece of glass so you can see inside the tank, except it's non-stop underwater footage. So it'd be super cool, especially for videos, like when you're doing it on your YouTube channel. And I think the cameras are like $200, and it's just a cool idea. I'm not like coining this idea, but I think it's really cool because like you could have a pond, but essentially be looking at it full time. I don't know. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. I'm setting up indoors pond in my house. I'm super excited. That was really hard to read. Oh my God, that is sick. Yep, that's happening. Ha ha ha. Yeah, dude, just get like a 50-inch TV. Get one of those like underwater cameras. I think they use them for like ice fishing, and you could have it set up full time essentially. And while you're doing your videos, you could be like watching fish, and maybe you could make it to where like you can move the camera. You can get more expensive ones that like you can use the remote to move, but he uses it while he's fishing, like ice fishing through the ice. And sometimes in tournaments, he's not catching anything, but he knows there's fish down there. So then the camera is essentially watching the fish and watching the bait, and he's watching it on the camera, and he wears it on his wrist. It has a little display. So he's fishing and he's watching it. It should be illegal in my honest opinion, because it's like cheating. You're like underwater with the fish and the bait, watching them essentially. But I think that could be integrated into ponds essentially. I think it'd be a cool idea. All right, back on topic. Unconventional does that with his information pond. Yes, he does. He does like a GoPro though, right? Because I watch his videos too, and that's like temporary underwater. I feel like a TV mounted, you could even, what would be cool is you could get your pond off the ground a little bit and then mount the TV to the side of it. So like you walk up to your pond, you could actually not even look in the pond, but look at your TV screen and be like, that's, essentially the TV is your viewing pane. Like this could be like a cool new thing that could catch on. I don't know, maybe not. But let me know what you think of it. All right, so aquarium sizes, guys. I know I got a little off topic there. I apologize. Apartment versus house. The idea of flooding your apartment, and I was always super afraid. When you live in an apartment, you have the idea of essentially the aquarium flooding down into your downstairs neighbor, and essentially, like, that's the scariest thing in the world, right? You get a call from your landlord. Yeah, dude, your 100-gallon tank blew a seam, and you have 100 gallons of water downstairs in the apartment below you, and it wrecked all of their stuff. Like, I'm guessing your renter's insurance, if you have some, fingers crossed, which I always had some, but you not only have to cover your stuff, you have to cover the downstairs people's stuff. And I was on the 3rd floor, so that could possibly be the next layer of people that you're wrecking stuff. And it gets pretty scary. You're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars with 100 gallons of water. You know, that's why apartments have rules like this. So like you have to be careful about it. I know a lot of us are stupid. People tell me like, yeah, I got a 6'1", 180 on the 19th story, and I live in Chicago. Like, that's cool, dude, but I'm not about to get sued. And like, I don't know. I'm a planner. I'm not good at doing things like that. I don't know. So that's something to worry about. Flooding your apartment, water changes. In apartments, it can be sometimes hard, because sometimes when you're hooking up the water changer, you got a really fancy sink, and you can't undo the sink, or maybe you break the sink. Sometimes those sinks are like $200-300. Like one of my friends is staying in an apartment where it has the electronic faucet where like you just put your hands in front of it and it just knows when you're in front of it. And I'm like, how would I do water changes if this is all electronic? You know, like when you're doing dishes, it knows you're doing the dishes in there, but essentially, like you couldn't hook up to that, because what are you gonna like put something in front of the sensor and just let it run constantly? That would be just a complete nightmare. Okay, and then next, what type of fish do you want to keep? You know, like if you're in an apartment, I would advise getting into smaller tanks. Get into like the shrimp world, the betta world, the planted tank world. Like it can still be really cool. I know most of my channel is like predatory, big, massive fish keepers, but there's still cool fish. You can keep like small carnivorous bucktooth tetras. You can keep predator fish that are pretty crazy. There's even some small catfish. Like there's just cool catfish you can keep that stay kind of small. And essentially, what else? Where are you gonna pit the tank? In your house or / your apartment? Because a lot of people like don't measure it out. Like that's also a big deal. And talk to your loved one. A lot of times, a lot of my friends say, yeah, I want this big tank and I need to make a 2x4 stand, but my wife isn't gonna be cool with just 2x4s in my living room. You know, like it needs to be a nicely painted stand. Talk with your loved one, plan it out. I know that kind of sucks. I'd rather bring home the tank and be like, yeah, here it is, wife. Oh, you don't like it? Like, well then divorce me, right? No, I'm just kidding. But it does suck. Like, I've thought I was gonna surprise my wife with like setting up a tank in our bedroom, and it turns out a lot of people have the same story. I'm like, honey, look, it's right on your side, and at night you can watch the fish. And she's just like, it stinks, and I don't like water, the sound of water at night because I get a headache. I'm giving a bad representation of my wife, but I feel like everything annoys her with fish tanks. The smell, the noise, the moving water sound, the water on the carpet. It's just like, let me live my life, lady. Jeez, why did you marry me? No, I'm just kidding. I love you, honey. All right, so next, plans for a stand. Like, if you want a clean-cut looking stand, like, you're gonna have to do your research. You're probably not gonna be able to DIY build one, or maybe you are, but you're gonna have to plan it out. Maybe go to a cabinet shop or a home improvement store. If you build it out of 2x4s, that's fine. Get some nice plywood on the outside and decorate it up a little bit. Maybe paint it an antique white to make your wife happy or your husband happy. I've even seen it vice versa, to where like the woman is trying to make the husband happy, so like she did something really cool, like she put LEDs under it, or she hung some antlers from a deer he killed from the front of it, and he's like, yeah, America, right? I don't know, it's fish stands are outrageously priced. It's true, dude. Like, I don't get, sometimes you can pay as much for the stand as you can the tank. It's like, where did this go wrong? Like, when I have to pay, the stand should be half the price. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, you almost have to be, like, constantly watching for used equipment. You know what I mean? Your wife loves you for all your other stuff. Yeah, my other stuff, right? She loves me for giving her a child, and that's about it, if we're being completely honest. No, we love each other. We've been together for 10 years. We just give each other a hard time. It's our way of just keeping healthy, and I feel like we both have our things that drive each other crazy, but we love each other at the end of the day. That's a happy marriage, right? Start a petition, Chris, to do a video on the bumblebee catfish. Happy Toast, you send me videos on the bumblebee catfish. I will get a video going, or maybe you can even like, if you want to start your own channel, and I can give you a shout out, and you can just do a video on my channel on the bumblebee, because a lot of times I feel like I've been really getting into having other people do species spotlights on them keeping the fish, because, oh, sorry, I'm upchucking these tacos here. I'm losing them. I shouldn't have ate 3 of them. But like when people keep a certain fish, you know, like an oddball fish, like the Dojo Loach. We just uploaded that like last week, and Naturally Loachy, he breeds loaches, and it's he's in the depths of keeping loaches, and I'm like, you know better than I do right now, especially, you know, like it's all about, because you spent hours of you know, when I get a fish, I do hours upon hours of research, and the person in the midst of doing that is a lot more knowledgeable. And that's why, like, when people send me these videos, I'm asking them a million questions, and I'm driving them crazy because they're like, just do the species spotlight video. I'm like, dude, you're keeping this fish. Tell me about your setup. What obstacles are you faced with? You know, like people that keep puffers, you know, like they're doing brackish water, or like, I did a post on the peacock bass. I've been getting a lot of people wanting to do those, and we're gonna be uploading a peacock bass video, and someone else is gonna be talking about them that's keeping like 4 or 5 of them in a tank. I just feel like it's, I don't know, if Africans are your specialty, I want to hear from you. I don't want to pretend to know to be the African, you know, like I'm a South American kind of hybrid Central American guy, and I'm going to be talking about that stuff tomorrow on a channel, JH Aquatics. We're going to like kind of do a small interview. If you guys want to check that out, tomorrow night I will not be live streaming because we'll be on his channel. So, what was I even talking about? Ugh. All right, guys, we got 74 people watching. Inventory King's in the house. He says, hey, dude, how's it going, sir? We're talking about aquarium sizes and mainly geared towards beginners. Like, Paul, what would you, if a beginner came to you and said, hey, Paul, I'm thinking about getting into a fish aquarium. Let's even say it's family. Like, your little cousin, or like your little cousin or your aunt wants a fish tank. They see your fish tanks. It happens to me all the time. They're like, oh, I want a fish tank. You keep fish tanks, you know? And I'm like, this isn't like just set it up and walk away type of thing. I always tell people, like, and what tank size are you gonna give them or tell them? Sometimes my friends like they want a tank, but like they won't get anything bigger than a 20 gallon. And usually what I do is give them a tremendously good deal on a big tank that I got, like a 75 that I found for really cheap laying around. I resealed, and I give them a great deal on it, and I set up everything, and a lot of the equipment is mine or used or like secondhand that was given to me, because they just don't, essentially beginners don't really know, like, they make all the wrong choices. I'm not trying to troll here, but as a beginner, that's how things work, you know? It's like when you're getting into something new, you just honestly don't know what you're doing. Paul said a 55-gallon tank. That is a good answer. I think I'm gonna go with the same answer, Paul. I've been babbling about it for over 20 minutes. It's the cheapest tank. It's easy to find. Stands are everywhere. It's enough water to where they're like, it's still manageable. I would love a 75-gallon, but that's the next jump into like that next level essentially. And I feel like the 55, a person feels like, man, I have a big tank, and people tell me, I have a big tank in my living room, and I'll be like, dude, I want to come visit it, and I'll come over, and I'm like, oh, it's a 55, you know, like, great. Dude. I tell people they can't fear larger tanks, and it's actually easier. Yes, that is completely right. The side of right says a 20-gallon can work for a newbie with a strong routine, and you got to be a workhorse. But I feel like newbies aren't workhorses when it comes to like setting up new tanks, essentially. You know what I mean, kind of? Chris, can we see your flower horn? Yes, you can. He may be a little beat up right now. I just put him back in his community tank, but he's doing pretty good. Let's see if I can get a good view of him. I threw a hang on the back filter on this tank right here. It's just a little Penguin 200. This tank was just been getting pretty like ripped up with detritus and uneaten food and such, and it's just kind of helping clear all that up essentially. All right, I'm gonna flip the cam, give you guys a good view here. There's the flower horn. Essentially what he does is he kind of like he chases a lot of these other fish, and what happens is he runs into these pieces of wood, a lot of times with his nodule there, or his hump, aka cock, and he's mainly chasing the blood parrot, and there's a female green Texas in here that he really is obsessed with. She's usually hiding, but he heals up really fast. This water's really clean. It gets a lot of water changes. Inventory King says, what's up in conventional aquatics? Yeah, see, he sometimes picks on the severums too. You can kind of see the slime coat on some of them. And that's the reason I take them out every once in a while. Just because he does harass everything in here. You can see that. He is the tank boss, the aggressor, and he mainly, he wants to breed with the blood parrot and the female green Texas, but he picks on the Severums the most because I think the Severums are like, they just are constantly keeping to themselves and they're not looking to fight. And they're just like, dude, chill out. Like, what are you doing to me? And they wind up getting like beaten on the most. And it saddens me. What I do is I throw stress coat in there. Stress coat every once in a while works magic. Love this stuff. And if it gets any worse than that, I'll just take them out. So, got a bunch of rocks under there I've been toying with. All right. It's getting hot in here. Some male parrots are fertile. That's true. Unconventional says, what's up, Paul? Finally made it in Chris's live stream. I always miss it. We must be on different time zones or something, huh? Sam Heron says, meow. All right, so we talked about aquarium sizes. Hopefully this kind of helps people in the future. Talking about, like, thinking about, I always get asked this, and what I try to do videos on is what people ask me. I know some of these live streams get kind of boring. I'm also adding a lot of these live streams that are kind of like information based to the podcast, because I feel like they're cool to listen to as far as like informational based information. And the podcast, Fish Aquarium Geeks, you can find it on all the main podcasting apps essentially. There's a bunch of other episodes on there. There's like Big City Betas is on there, JH Aquatics. There's interviews from all the Friday Fish Facts interviews. There's tons of stuff on there. So a lot of you guys probably already seen a lot of it if you follow all the channels or listen to my streams, what have you. But if you ever miss a stream, I put a lot of them on there. If any of you guys want to add cool content to it, just reach out to me and I will add it. So like a lot of you creators, unconventional, maybe you guys want to do a live stream where you're talking about something informational based. Paul, I would love to have an episode with you talking about Africans. I would love to pick your brain on African cichlids, or essentially someone that knows a lot about Africans, just because I'm in the midst of just doing tons of research myself, and I think it'd be cool. So maybe we could like hook up together essentially. And I don't mean that in that kind of weird way. Unless Paul wants that, then I'm totally down. Here's what I'm thinking. A beginner buys a 20-gallon tank. By the way, this is from Paul, Inventory King. A beginner buys a 20-gallon tank. In 6 months, they're going to wish they bought the bigger tank, like us addicts. Started with one, ended up with a bunch. I feel like, Paul, I feel like you're completely right, but I feel like only 20% of people, this is just my number I throw out there, 80% of people give up on the hobby once all their fish, because if their fish die, they give up. But the 20% that like excel and they're like, holy crap, like this is awesome. Like I have snails that are just flourishing. I have guppies, they're breeding. I have molly. I have like this is awesome. Like I need a bigger tank. Or you go and research, hey, I want to keep something oddball, but I can't put it with this. You're like, oh, let's get one more tank, and all of a sudden you look around and you have a fish room in your garage and your wife isn't allowed to park in the garage anymore because you're heating it. And she tells her woman, the ladies at work, oh, this guy, my husband's a weirdo. Unconventional sent you an email. I missed that. What's going down here? Let's face it, Tanganyikans are underrated. Yes, Tanganyikans, that's what I'm researching big time. Tanganyikans, I gotta admit, they are underrated. Thanks for letting me know. I'll check it out as soon as the stream is over. Caleb Aquatics is in the house. You are local to me. What's up, sir? I am that 20%, says Mia D's. I've been working on a video about treating ick with snails in the tank. Should be up in a few days. Okay, I gotcha. Hey man, you didn't get my comment on Cichlid Tankmate live stream. My question to you is, can large haps live with jags? Large haps, that'd be a question for Paul. He's a Lake Malawi guy. He keeps a lot of the haps, the big predator haps, and I'm gonna tell you no, because I know Africans shouldn't be kept with South Americans for the most part. If you want my Wait until you see my new fish, monsters to be. Chris, you want some videos of the lace cats? Sure, that'd be cool. I'm gonna put that on my to-do list. Lace cats. If you guys keep any cool fish that like I haven't done videos on, like species spotlights, don't hesitate to like contact me. We can meet up and do a cool species spotlight. I essentially like would love to just have species spotlights just for days, you know what I mean? I have playlists already just for me rambling, and I just love this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's days where I just like, my wife walked in the other day and I was just staring at a fish tank. She's like, I've been in this room for 10 minutes and you've been staring at that fish tank. And I was like, what else? Why wouldn't I have a fish tank if we're not gonna stare at it? Like, what, you know what I'm saying, dude? I've been talking negatively about my wife a lot tonight. I think it's because she yelled at me before I went into the live stream. Like, I need to let her know that like she pushed me the wrong way tonight, and it came out in the live stream. She asked me to fix like 3 to 5 different things in the house, and like as if I'm not already doing all. Like, she knows I'm a YouTuber. I got all these hundreds of fish tanks. Like my daughter, and then she's like, oh, by the way, can I build a barn door? Like, and I'm like, honey, I have so much stuff to do. And then she keeps adding to the list. I'm like, one thing a day. Like, I'm cool doing this stuff, but one thing a day. My wife keeps texting me, and my internet is buffering out. All right, there it goes back, right? Yeah. All right, guys, sorry about that. My camera just talking bad about your wife. Yeah. Fingers crossed she never watches this, huh? One thing a day. Dude, my wife, she keeps me so busy. Like, we've renovated this entire house with, I'm fortunate, she's fortunate to have married me because I've worked construction for like 10 years. I was a plumber, I was an electrician, like I know how to build stuff pretty well. And yeah, Paul says if your jaguar and haps were in the same size, they could probably coexist. But again, I'm about keeping species only. Yes, you're gonna get trolled on the internet for sure for doing that. A lot of people keep species together just fine, but when playing with fire, stand back, be ready to put out the fire essentially, and by that equates to removing fish and thinking about plan B. So give it a try, give some hiding spots, make sure it's a big tank. It's all the same drill with predator fish like this. My wife does the same thing to me. I feel like, this is gonna be a side rant before I go, but men have so many cards to deal with nowadays. We have so many roles. Like, I get anxiety from like, I have to be like the sole caretaker for my family. I'm not gonna let my family fail because it's, there's just no way you can. Like, I have to work like construction. I have to work 60 hours a week to make sure everything doesn't fail with my family. And nowadays, men have to like, they have more shoes to fill. Like, like 20 years ago, the dad came home, drank a beer, sat on the couch. He didn't make dinner. He didn't change diapers. Like, it's different nowadays. I'm changing diapers. I'm making dinners 3 nights a week. I'm doing the dishes. I'm also changing the oil on the car. It's, there's a lot of different roles, and it just gives me anxiety. And then on top of this, overly extremely addictive hobby that's taken over my life, like it's just a lot to handle. And oh, by the way, I own like 10 Facebook groups. It's like 400,000 people worth of Facebook groups that I'm trying to moderate and keep in par, which I don't get paid a penny for. Like there's a lot that I deal with, and a lot of people are like, Chris, why don't you do that? Chris, why don't you do this? Like, why haven't you done this? Like, why aren't you farther on your shop build? And it's just like, there's just a lot to deal with, you know what I'm saying? But I love the grind. I hate sleeping. This is what I love. So, God, I've done this like 100 times. Like, hello. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up this stream. Hit up the comment section for some ideas on a live stream tomorrow. Someone gave me this idea on this live stream, so this is a great idea. What aquarium size is the best for you or / a beginner? Hit up the comments, let me know what you think. Please do a fish room tour. I'm not doing a tour because I'm setting up the shop. Within a matter of 2 to 3 months, we're gonna be back out in the shop like full time. We're probably not gonna see much of in here anymore because the live streams are gonna be in the shop. So it's to come. Once the weather gets a little warmer, It's crazy right now. -30, 32 wind chill projected for